Welcome to everyone. This is a part of my life that I wanted to share for a while, and finally, after 15 years, I was able to write this up. It was a long and tedious process. It almost took me 3 years to write this book and get it to you. But Alhamdulillah, now that it is out, it is getting good traction, not just in the local Indo-Pakistani subcontinent Bangladeshi community, but also worldwide. So once again, thank you for joining here. This is the book. As you can see, it is out. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and every other station. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the background. I was born in East Pakistan, the then Bangladesh. My family emigrated from India to East Pakistan. It was called East Pakistan in those days. And we settled there. I was born there. And when I was young, 7, 8-year-old boy, there was strife, unrest, and civil war. What happened is that there was a clash between the Bengalis and Biharis. It's one of those unfortunate events. There was a full-scale civil war between the Bengalis and West Pakistanis. The Bengalis got their independence and the West Pakistanis lost half of their country. In any case, it was a joyous occasion for many, but a sad occasion for others. My family got caught in this civil war as innocent bystanders. Then, after the war, we became refugees and we were taken to India, where we spent almost 2 years in a prisoner of war camp. During these 2 years, we had a lot of suffering, and it was so bad that my parents did not want to talk about it, and it became kind of my responsibility at the end that I eventually wrote this book up. The question is, after 50 years, why did I write this story? One reason is because this story is something that has never been told. It is something that many people know about, but it has not been told by the viewpoint of the 93,000 prisoner of wars that were incarcerated in Indian camps. Nobody has ever written this story, and I thought it is good time to get that story out, since the world has not heard about this part of the debacle. The other reason was because of the refugee cause. To this day, there are 70 million refugees in the world. Higher number than at any time in the history of the world except World War II. My book will hopefully bring some attention to the refugee cause, and it is already doing so. It has been picked up by a number of refugee organizations who are working with me to promote the refugee cause, promote awareness of the refugees. So Alhamdulillah, we want to bring some attention to the refugee issues in the world by doing this, by promoting this book, and inshallah, we hope that people will understand that refugees are normal people like you and me, and they just have to be driven away from their homes. No fault of their own, but just one fine morning somebody decides that, you're not like us and you need to leave your home, your school, your family, and everything. It is a very sad situation in the world, from Syria to Rohingya, Iraq, so many refugees all over the world. With this, I would go ahead and start the book reading. Once again, this is my book. It is available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I will read a chapter, actually just a small abstract from the chapter. It's chapter number 10. I would like you to transport yourself into 1971, one wintry cold morning, where we were in a refugee camp called the Kilo camp, and from there we were put in army vehicles and trucks and taken over to the port of Narayanganj. Then we were put in ships and transported. So this is where the chapter starts, and at the end of the chapter we disembark from the ship, and then we were transported into a train, and then our very long journey begins. So this particular reading, please go ahead and transport yourself to the early 70s, and maybe close your eyes, relax, and enjoy the reading. Chapter 10. The Long Journey Begins. As morning came, there was quite a bit of hustle and bustle in the makeshift Kilo refugee camp. I saw a long line of Indian army trucks approaching our camp. An army officer spoke to us on a horn loudspeaker and instructed us to come out with our luggage. So we gathered our belongings and lined up next to the trucks. The smell of the diesel fumes from the big trucks was nauseating, but at least the heat from the engines provided us with some warm, welcome warmth in the cold December morning. Very systematically, the Red Cross started loading us into the trucks. No one knew where we were going, but we were glad we were going somewhere. Maybe to Pakistan. Our turn came late in the morning. My family took our belongings and climbed into the back of the big green military truck. We sat on the benches on either side while some people sat on the truck bed. We rode in the truck for 2 hours until we reached the river port of Narayanganj. We disembarked from the trucks and were instructed to walk over to the docks. It was very chaotic, and it seemed like thousands of people were coming from everyone at once. There were lots and lots of people, but no one was making eye contact, and everyone seemed to be in their own world, like a bunch of scared zombies. We were all walking as fast as we could, and a few people stumbled and fell too. Some people were old and infirm, some were young and energetic. There were lots of women and children in the crowd. The refugees were carrying everything they possibly could bring with them. Some had suitcases or cane baskets. Others carried sacks, bags, buckets, cooking pots, and everything imaginable. Some had simply tied their belongings into a cloth bundle, which they carried on their backs. An old steamboat was waiting for us at the Narayanganj port. It was a large flat-bottom boat with small compartments on both the upper and lower decks and large open spaces with numerous long wood benches on the deck. Though the old rocket steamer had a capacity of around 600 or so passengers, nearly 1,000 refugees were crammed into the decks and cabins. By the time we got on the boat, most of the space was already occupied. My family found a covered area on the upper deck under the smokestacks and huddled together. It was very comforting to be close to my family, all 5 of us together. Just after sundown, the big paddle wheels of the steamboat started to turn. The steamer let out a bellowing horn and pulled away from the dock into the choppy waters. As the steamer started picking up speed, the wind took its cue and blew fiercely on our faces. It was very gusty, and sitting on the deck, we were completely exposed to the elements. Soon night fell, and we were sailing down the river Meghna. It was a stormy night. The steamer churned, listed, and groaned under the weight of its passengers. With every crosswind, the old steamer lurched dangerously. The moon was full, causing the tidal magna to toss the steamboat up and down on the currents. No one could sleep that night, and we feared that the overburdened ship would sink. So that is the book reading. What I would like to do is perhaps open up the forum for some question answers. You can ask me questions by simply typing on the Facebook page on the discussions part, and I'll be able to answer those questions. And perhaps after a few minutes we can go to the second chapter that I would also like to read to you, and then we will close the session. Thank you. So if someone has any questions, please go ahead. So Tracy, thank you very much for being there, and I appreciate your comment. I'm glad you enjoyed the book, and hopefully others will also enjoy it. Thank you. I also have a comment from Tazeen Babar, and thank you for being here. And yes, please do get the book, and hopefully you will enjoy the book. A lot of people ask me, why do we, why did I write this book after so many years? Well, when we were growing up, this was almost like a taboo subject. My parents were so hurt with all this episode, they never wanted to talk about it. I myself had done some effort when I was very young and made some notes to myself. I knew that this was a story that many people could resonate with, and it is a human story. And it so happened that about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, my son started writing his thesis on the genocide in Bangladesh. He unearthed a lot of things that I wasn't aware of, and I supported him in his work, and together we kind of inspired each other. He wrote his thesis, and I started writing my book. So it was a good journey, a father and son journey. We enjoyed doing it together. There is one more question about how how it all transpired. So basically, after the war, a new country of Bangladesh was born. We were the Bihari people living in ethnic Bihari people living in Bangladesh at that time. We suddenly became unwanted in that area. So we had to go over to West Pakistan, which was almost 1,000 miles away. So the Indian Army actually took 93,000 of us, and they put us in various camps throughout India. We stayed there for 2 years. 2 long years we stayed on those camps, makeshift camps. They were not tent camps, they were actually buildings, barracks, or barracks made for the military at one time. And they didn't have any floor, furniture, just a barren floor, no furniture, no curtains. Our family was given a very, very small piece of area on the floor on which we would sit down, eat, and spend our life. So it was 2 years, 2 long years that we spent in this condition before finally the governments of India and Pakistan started talking to each other, and they came to an agreement which facilitated our return to Pakistan. That was in October 1973. So we became refugees in December, on the 16th of December 1971, and we were released from the camps on the 29th of October 1973. I have a comment from Khaled Razvi. Thank you for joining me. You've always been an inspiration for me. Good old Hyderabadi, mashallah, etiquettes, and always a pleasure to meet you. And I'm surprised to know that you also had your uncle stuck there. So hope he did all right. Many people were not as fortunate, and many families lost their loved ones. Also, Nancy, thank you for being here. How has my family responded to this book? Overall, it's been very positive. Now, they loved the book, and they loved knowing all the facts that they were not aware of. So, first of all, my immediate family, which is my brother and sisters, they were actually instrumental in writing this book. So my parents have since then passed away. My brother and sister, they live in Chicago, and they were actually very instrumental. They helped me in doing this book. And I was younger, so I was the youngest, so I did not remember as much as they did. So they jolted my memory, and we together kind of wrote the book. And they are very proud of this, and it is like it is their achievement. I also have some more not so immediate family. For example, my uncles, aunts, nephews, cousins, and they also read this book with a great amount of enthusiasm, and they were happy to be educated as what happened. Remember that just the 5 of us were in the camps, and the rest of the family was outside. They were either in England, India, Pakistan. They were scattered all over the world. So they actually did not even know that whether we were alive or dead after the 16th of December. It was 3 long months before my family actually realized that we were safe and in Indian refugee camps. 3 months. They were relieved, of course, at that time. But now that they're all settled and growing older, and their children are growing older, they're really enjoying this book, and they appreciate it as a part of their family heritage and legacy. So overall, it has been a very, very positive response, both from my family and from everyone else, and from the community at large. People have commented to me that this book has not been written from the angle of a Pakistani or a Bengali or an Indian person. It is written through the eyes of a young boy who is as honest as a young boy can be. And it is written from the human angle. So above all, it is a human story. With that, I would like to go to the second book reading. I would like to do that right now. And after that, we will close the session. Thank you for your questions. And let's do the next book reading. Chapter 14, Settling into Our New Life. This is where we have been brought into a small camp in the outskirts of Roorkee. So I want you to transport yourself to 1971 in a small town, outskirts of this small town in Roorkee, in the Saharanpur district of India, in the foothills of the Himalayas. There is not much population around where we are, and we have been caged or imprisoned in old Indian military barracks that have been completely emptied for our arrival. Chapter 14, Settling into Our New Life. The 800 or so civilian prisoners of cage number 1, camp number 34 in Roorkee soon became accustomed to their new home. surrounded by barbed wire fences and guarded by soldiers on watchtowers round the clock, we started living our new lives. Days and nights passed by, and soon weeks and months slipped away. Our Indian military camp commander, Colonel Harnam Singh, organized the prisoners into groups. He appointed room commanders and barrack commanders from among the civilian refugees. Groups were also organized to clean the barrack rooms and toilets. A group of men mopped the long veranda and passageways inside each building every morning. Then there was a group that painted the veranda walls with chalk white paint once every few weeks. A group of men was tasked with cutting the grass as well as picking up the trash in the fields. There was another group that brushed the pathways and cleaned the roads that led into our cage. There was even a group to supervise all the other groups. In short, every man in camp number 34 had a job to do every morning. Harnam Singh wanted everyone to be busy, so they won't have time to think about anything else. In the initial days of captivity, food was prepared in the langar by the Indian military cooks. As time passed, Colonel Harnam Singh and his men selected volunteers from the refugees to do this job. These volunteers worked in 3 shifts to prepare food for the 840 or so residents of cage number 1, camp number 34. Food was cooked in huge days, placed atop massive fire pits, and then distributed to the barracks 3 times a day. We quickly adapted to our new lifestyle. Camp number 34 became our new home. Sleeping on the floor with a room full of strangers no longer seemed strange. The presence of armed soldiers carrying guns with open bayonets patrolling just outside our cage became routine. And after a while, the spotlights sweeping down from the high towers late at night didn't bother us anymore. I got used to my new home. It was merely a 6 by 8 feet cement floor space in the southwestern corner of room number 4 of barrack number 1. We covered the space with a floor mat and placed our meager possessions around the perimeter. We sat, ate, and slept there. This is where I would always find Ammi, my mother. If anyone ever asked me where I lived, I would say, room number 4, barrack number 1. This was my home address. So this is the small 8 by 6 foot space in an open barrack that I spent the next 2 years. There is a lot happened in those 2 years, and for that, please check out my book. Read from it, and you will be surprised to learn how resilient human beings are and how we adapt in a given circumstances. With that, I would like to finish or end the session. I think we said 1 to 1:30, and we are almost there as we draw to the close. I would like to request you to spread the word about this book and encourage your friends to check it out. The proceeds from the sales of this book will be donated to Amana Refugee Services, who's doing a great job of supporting refugees, and to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. I vividly remember, and you will see in the books, that when we were in these refugee camps at the beginning of our journey, the UNHCR personnel came and gave us food. They gave us cooking pots and other stuff. They gave us milk, These folks are doing a wonderful job and they need our support. Part of the proceeds from the sales of this book will be donated to these two refugee organizations. I'm working with others as well, and they're all doing a great job, including the Texas Refugee Commission and others. But please do spread the word. And if you like the book, please give me a review on Amazon. If you can't give me a review on Amazon, give me a review on Barnes & Noble or Google. Google has a book review. Goodreads is another outlet. Please give me a review if you like the book. That is how we can spread the word and make this book go viral. So it is 1:30 now, and with that, goodbye and inshallah see you again.